I am a former fearful avoidant, and I just wanted to share these 5 things that are very, very powerful to heal. I am Pauline, and I am so happy you are here because if you're on your healing journey as a fearful avoidant, it can be quite overwhelming, can't it? And I just wanted to share these 5 things to kind of point you maybe in the right direction and make it a little bit less overwhelming. So let's dive in. These are the 5 things you need to heal. The first one is the personalization. And with that, I mean understanding that the trauma and what you've been through is not you. It doesn't say anything about who you are. It doesn't say that you did things wrong when you were a child. You, in a way, just had bad luck. You had parents who weren't able to give you the unconditional love you have always deserved and are still and always have been worthy of. And so when you understand trauma and when you understand where it comes from, it kind of helps you to detach your own sense of self from the trauma. And this really helped me heal because up to that point, I thought that I had deserved it. This was an unconscious thought, but I thought because I was so difficult as a child, that's why I deserved to have, my parents treat me the way they treated me. And um, when I started learning about trauma and CPTSD, complex PTSD, and emotional manipulation, I realized that it wasn't me. And this is such a prerequisite for healing because if you don't understand that um, the more subtle forms of parenting abuse that can lead to this attachment style, then you keep thinking that it's you, and when you think it's you, you don't think you can heal it. So in order to heal, you need to know that it wasn't you, and um, only then will you really allow yourself to heal from it. So it's really healing the idea of personalization, that it was you, that it was your fault, and that with other parents you would have this too. Healing that is very much the first step to healing pretty much all of it. Because if you think it's you, then you won't allow yourself to heal. Also because then you hold on to the trauma because you think it is serving a purpose. You think it is protecting you. You believe, for instance, that you are a bad person because you think that if you don't believe that, you will not keep yourself in check and then you will hurt other people. And so that belief kind of serves you until you realize that that wasn't you. You weren't a bad kid. You weren't a bad person. Um, and then you will allow yourself to heal. Then the second is your fear of unpredictability. Because this is so at the core of the fearful avoidant attachment style. You probably have had a unpredictable, chaotic home. And it might not feel that way. It might feel like your parents just had it all together. They weren't, there wasn't any alcoholism or addiction. Maybe there was, but then it's a little bit more obvious that it might have been a chaotic home. But this really took me a long time to see that even though my parents were very stable financially and, from the outside it looked like they had it all together, there was a lot of unpredictability in the home when it came to emotional volatility. And that is also a form of unpredictability that can be very hard as a kid to deal with. And that is one of the core drivers of the fearful avoidant attachment style, that you are scared that something will happen that you won't see coming and that you won't be able to handle when it comes. And so healing that fear of unpredictability, partly because you now know that you're an adult and you can handle so much more by, for instance, putting up boundaries, setting boundaries with people. You didn't have that when you were a kid. And so now you're able to handle so much more than when you were a kid and protect yourself from that. But also not needing to know exactly what is coming in every moment will really help you be able to release the control that is very exhausting, that you're trying to get over your external factors. So that's the second one, your fear of unpredictability. And then the third one is your fear of feelings, and that means your own feelings and other people's feelings. So A big differentiator from the fearful avoidant attachment style with the other attachment styles is that feelings are very um, important. They're almost like on a pedestal for the fearful avoidant attachment style. You may have noticed this, that you're probably afraid of your own feelings. When they come up, certain feelings you just don't want to feel because of what you think they mean, because of the fact that when you felt them when you were younger, you were humiliated for that, mocked for that, your parents got mad at you for that. That could be with fear, that could be with sadness. And so when those come up, you feel fear and you want to kind of suppress it. And then there are other feelings that you do want to have, like happiness or contentment, just whatever was approved of when you were younger. And you want to hold on to that, and you want to feel those even more intense, because the more intense you feel them, the more you have a feeling of security. And this is what I call emotional management, which is what you probably do a lot as a fearful avoidant, trying to manage what you feel and not feel, because just allowing all of your feelings to be there can be really scary, and it will be such a relief and so much freedom when you release the emotional management, when you don't need it anymore, because you're not afraid of your feelings. You know that it is very normal and human to feel the whole range of feelings, and they don't mean what your fear brain is telling you they mean, and they can't hurt you. Your feelings can't hurt you. But also the fear of feelings of others. I was so scared of other people getting angry, right? Because that's what you probably have been brought up with. Anger was used as a method of manipulation. When you didn't do what your parents wanted, they used anger to get you to do it. And so I thought when somebody else would get angry that they were right and that I did something wrong, and I would feel guilty and it would just feel horrible, until I realized that it was actually a feeling of somebody else that I was afraid of. And then I thought, that's interesting, because I'm learning how to feel my feelings, how to regulate my feelings. And so other people can learn that too. So when they get angry, maybe it's not my fault, but maybe it's that they don't have the capacity to regulate their anger. They don't have the capacity to choose something different than anger to respond with. And that really helped. There was also very much healing needed to release that fear from my system, because my whole system kind of like clamped when somebody else would get angry, or when I thought somebody else was angry, even when it wasn't the case. But that was very freeing, to not be afraid of other people's feelings either anymore. So that was the third. The fourth one is the familiarity of chaos. As much as you might dislike the chaos that you grew up in, the chaos that your life now maybe is mirroring, there is a certain familiarity to it. Your system is just used to chaos, and it can feel very uncomfortable when the chaos is not there, when it's peaceful, when it's quiet, when there's when everything is just stable and steady. When your system, your fear brain, your fear system, your nervous system is completely all used to chaos, that is what tends to recreate it, because in a way that feels safe. Your fear system, your fear brain's like, I know this, I know chaos, I have been trained for this, and so that feels better than the unknown, which is peace and relaxation and stability. Because to the fear brain, that means that something is going to happen, but you don't know when it's going to happen. And so your fear brain wants, it actually prefers to have chaos, so that it knows something is off and it knows what to focus on, instead of just waiting for the impending doom. That is something that happened when you were younger, but obviously it doesn't have to happen now. But healing this will help you to stop recreating chaos, and that can mean stop the push and pull, stop the highs and lows, and definitely stop the build and destruct. So this was one of the more surprising things that I had to do. And I have a whole video on the art of neutrality. Watch that, because that is essentially what this is about, to be able to accept neutrality and to like the feeling of stability and steadiness over chaos. You can definitely heal that and get to that point, and that will also give you a lot of freedom. And then the fifth one is the fear of power. I talk about this one a lot, and I was thinking about not including it in this video because I talk about it a lot, but it is so important. And if this is the only video you watch of me, I just want you to have the most important 5 things that you need to heal, and this definitely is one of them. But the fear of power will keep you from allowing yourself to heal, because the more powerless you feel, the more you will stay in that position, and the more you heal, the more powerful you just become. That is just what happens. Powerful in the sense that you set boundaries and that you feel like you have an influence in your life, that you can control some of your some factors in your life. And that can be really scary for your fear brain, because it is really afraid of taking responsibility, because that could mean that people get mad at you when you make a mistake. It is afraid of making mistakes, which have a graver consequence to your fear brain. This is what your fear brain thinks. When you are powerful, and when you have the belief that you hurt others just by being yourself, which you might have as a fearful avoidant, it is also scary to be powerful, because that would mean you hurt others even more powerfully. This is all fear brain logic. It's not rational and it's not true, but that's just what your fear brain does. It's trying to protect you. And one of the ways it does that is by keeping you feeling powerless, in a powerless position. Essentially, so you can't really do as much damage, and to keep you safe from the wrath of others, which is just, it's so not true. And you deserve to feel powerful, and to feel how good and natural that feels, and to feel that your presence, you being you, is definitely not damaging others, and can heal others just by being yourself. So becoming more powerful will absolutely accelerate your healing, because if you are still uncomfortable with power, you will keep yourself in a powerless position, and you won't allow yourself to heal. So these are 5 things that if you heal these, you are very well on your way to being healed. And what I see as being healed, and why I call myself a former fearful avoidant, is because it's not that I'm perfect. It's not that I never feel any, sadness or frustration. It's that I rarely get triggered, and when I get triggered, it's like maybe 10% of what used to happen when I was triggered. And I am able to have just a lot of stability in pretty much all of my areas of life, and feel really good with that. So there are several reasons why I say I'm a former fearful avoidant. I probably should have said this at the beginning. And I have multiple videos on that, like how do I know I've healed, because it can come off as arrogant saying I have healed. I'm as if I'm saying I'm better than you, and that is absolutely not my intention. It's just that I want you to know that these types of freedoms exist, and that it is absolutely possible to heal, because I don't ever want you to believe that you have to live with this for the rest of your life if you don't want to. So these 5 are really, really, really powerful, and will get you to a place where you feel a sense of peace and freedom that you might not even be able to imagine right now. And that's why I do this. That's why I make these videos. So let me know in the comments below whether this was helpful, whether you recognize any of those, whether this helps you kind of point in the right direction of what to heal. And as always, I am so happy you are here, and I will see you in the next one.